Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cover 4 podcast for week number 4 of our little escapades into high school and college sports here in the area. I'm Jim Trickett, along with the man with the crimson colored glasses, Randy Gibson. And Randy, good week for the high schools around Cherokee County. They went 3-1 this week.
Yeah, happy homecoming to the Tahlequah Tigers. Got a win over Putnam City. Interesting story. I actually got to be at that game and with all of my classmates from 1983, and we had a lot of fun up there. A couple of the players back then were kind of talking about their days and some things happening on the field, and some things that similar were happening back then that happened Friday night. So yeah, it was a good night for all the high schools.
Yeah, that would have been my first tour of duty as the sports editor of the Daily Press, but I hadn't got here yet. I didn't get here till late October. Sports editor left, and they hired me, and that was back whenever the Press was an afternoon paper.
Mm-hmm.
So you
I
worked
remember
from,
those days.
literally from can till can't back then.
I remember those days. One of the interesting things that was exciting, the game was an exciting game, actually, Jim. The Tigers, they were ahead, and then they were letting it slip away. Putnam City was kind of pulling back, but right kind of at the start of the fourth quarter, Tahlequah scored, and that was it. And they wound up coming out of there with the win, 28-19.
29-19 was the final, and the Tigers try to make it 2-0 in the district as they traveled to Sand Springs Friday night to take on the Sandites, and they ran into the number one team in Class 6A2 at Ruffer Village Friday night. They got beat by Muskogee 51-13. So,
oh wow, I hadn't heard that score.
They will be smarting a little bit as they come back to officially Charles Page High School. That's the name of the school, but everybody knows it is Sand Springs. So they'll play that ball game Friday night over in Sand Springs. So that's could be hopefully Tigers go 2-3, and that would help them a little bit toward the postseason as they do things a little differently in 6A. They do it similar to what they do over in Arkansas with their top classification with only 16 teams. They'll take 6 teams, and the first 2 teams in the district get a bye in the first round. Mm-hmm. So you play 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5 from the other district, and if you wind up 3rd and 4th in the district, well, you'll get to play at home in the first round. So
that would be great. Hopefully the Tigers can keep this winning streak going.
Yeah,
it'll be fun. Talk about them, and how about the Indians out of Sequoia? They dominated, didn't they?
They dominated Okemah. It was, from what I heard, it was a flag fest over there, but they romped over the Okemah Panthers 50-8. And they'll get to come home to Thompson Field on Friday night, and they take on the Henrietta Knights, formerly known as, you and I remember them as, the Henrietta Hens.
The Hens, yeah, the Fighting Hens.
Yes.
Kind of like
who's
with
their
NSU.
most famous alum from Henrietta?
I can tell you that, Troy Aikman.
Correct.
Troy Aikman. I remember that well. I remember whenever he came to Oklahoma in 1985, I think.
About
4.
That, yeah.
Maybe 485. He was along in that time period. He was there about the time I was. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great player. Went on to the Dallas Cowboys, Super Bowl champion.
As a
fantastic.
As a gold jacket.
Gold jacket, you betcha.
Hall of Famer.
Kind of knew some people over in Henrietta when Troy was their quarterback, and when he went to Oklahoma, I was kind of chuckling, remembering one of them said, if Troy Aikman ever plays a down at Oklahoma, I'll eat my hat. Well, he wound up having to eat his hat because he did quite well at Oklahoma until he broke his leg against the University of Miami. He was in a pass fest with Vinny Testaverde, if you remember, on that kind of overcast October Saturday, and wound up breaking his leg. And after that, Oklahoma had Jamel Holloway come in and lead him to the national championship. And Barry Switzer worked with, I believe it was Troy Donahue. No,
Terry Donahue.
Terry Donahue, yeah.
Was a coach out there at UCLA.
Right. And got him a good transfer out there to UCLA, and he did quite well out there as well.
Yeah, he did. And Terry Donahue, a very good coach out there for the Bruins back in the day. And he knew what he was doing as far as coaching out there on the West Coast, and had to go against John McKay, who was a Southern Cal back then.
USC, yeah.
Now, the other team that got a win, they got their first win of the season, was the Keys Cougars. They defeated the Rolling Rangers 32-21 out at Jerry Hood Stadium, and they'll have to go on the road, and it's going to be a tough one. They got to go down I-40 a ways, and they got to take on the number 10 ranked Prague Red Devils. And they'll play them on Friday night. We made that trip to Prague one time for Sequoia. That's been back, you hate to say it, 15 years ago. This is back when Brent Scott was the head coach and Braden, better known as Cub, was the quarterback. We played them in the second round game out there, and it was a cold night in Prague. And you get past Henrietta, and there's nothing out there to stop the wind, and it was a pretty windy night. But we won it. We came back here and ran into Heritage Hall, and that was not very pretty, to say the least. They were good. I think, if I'm thinking correctly, they may have had a guy by the name of Wes Welker playing for them, who went on to play for the Patriots. The only other team that played, well, unfortunately, they're 0-4, Hulbert Riders. They were home and lost to Commerce. They lost to the Tigers 52-12, and now they go on the road all the way up into the northeastern part of Ottawa County and take on the Fairland Owls in a game that will face two 0-4 ball clubs. So somebody's going to get a win Friday night.
Somebody will probably come out of that one with a win.
Hopefully it's the black and gold of
hope so.
Hulbert, because the road will be getting a little bit tougher as we get to the second half of the season starting next week, and that doesn't sound right. We're already at the 5th week of the season and second week in the district.
Right. Yeah, we kind of had a tough time.
Yeah.
All the
Colbert
teams
has
but...
struggled for a number of years. They've had some years when they've been pretty good, but here lately the pickings have been a little bit on the slim side. But hopefully they can get it turned around. I think they've probably got some kids. They may be down at the junior high level right now, and maybe if they come up, things will get better over there. So, talk about another sport. The spring season, fall seasons. The Lady Tiger softball team and the Lady Indian softball teams are doing well. They've won their districts or regionals, so they're going to be getting ready to head toward Oklahoma City and Hall of Fame Stadium. Those softball state tournaments ought to be coming up here pretty quick.
It's really interesting. Softball's really picked up in Oklahoma on both high school and college levels, I think. It's been kind of fun to watch.
Especially, we play fast pitch in the fall and then slow pitch in the spring. So it gives these college coaches a chance to come and watch these girls in the fall. and then they get ready for their season in the spring. So you know that the coach up at TU, the coach at Oklahoma State, of course, you know that Gasso's out there looking at OU, and I'll give props over to Courtney Deifel over at Arkansas. She has really turned Arkansas's softball program around here in the last 2 or 3 years. They've had a chance to host regionals the last 3 seasons over there at Bogle Park, and Hunter Yurchek's going to have to start looking, saying, okay, we're going to have to expand, because every seat, as far as chairback seats, those are all sold by season tickets. You got to sit down on the berm out in the outfield and take your lawn chairs if you want to go see them play.
So that's good. You know, I'm really happy to see that softball has really made a push in the last few years. It's really fun to watch.
It is. I
enjoy
had the pleasure of working games with ESPN and the SEC Network, doing talent stats and stage managing, and then sometimes just doing the official stats, and talking to the control room in either Bristol or normally it's in Charlotte is who I talk to, and I'm doing essentially a play-by-play, and they are to give them the graphics so they know what the count is, how many outs there are, what the ruling was on a hit or an error or a wild pitch or a passed ball. I give that to them as well whenever I work official stats for a softball game. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, you can go over there. I think you can order tickets. I think they're like, I want to say $5 to $8 to see it out in the berm. I know just looking, I've got the volleyball match tomorrow night on SEC Network doing official stats, and Eric Freed is going to be the play-by-play guy tomorrow night over at historic Barn Hill Arena there in Fayetteville. That's where they play their volleyball matches, the former basketball home of the Razorbacks. And in fact, they're going to play one basketball game in there in a couple of weeks. They're going to have the red and white game back again inside Barn Hill. And it's first come, first serve is trying to get a seat in that darn place.
Wow.
So Muss has done that the last 3 years. And it has, he has really embraced that. And he said, wow, this is the way it used to be in this place. And the guys, he did it first, really not only to honor Nolan Richardson, but also to honor Eddie Sutton before he passed away. Eddie got to see one more game in the barn before he passed away a couple of years ago. And then, of course, Nolan, he built that thing, up, and you could call Bud Walton Arena the house that Nolan built, and that's a true statement. But the other sport we talk about, Tahlequah, as they're nearing about a month from their state meet, is the cross country team. They went over and ran the pre-state over the weekend in Edmond. That's where they'll hold the state meet. And Lady Tigers wound up third. McKenna Hood, that is Robin Reese Hood's daughter. Robin, you may remember, the only 4-time All-Stater. She's got 4 of those blue and gold jackets. And here in Oklahoma, in order to earn All-State, you earn it at the state meet. You have to finish in the top 10 to get the blue and gold All-State jacket. And Robin's got 4 of them. McKenna's got 2. She didn't get one last year because we were in 6A, and she couldn't get in the top 10.
So, I was thinking about Robin Saturday morning, talking about my class reunion here for homecoming. We one of our classmates is a principal at one of the schools, at the alternative school, and so she took us on a tour of the high school. A lot of our classmates hadn't been back to the high school since we graduated, and there was a pretty good sized group of us walking through, and they were walking through the TMAC, which I'd been lucky enough to see, but several of them, that especially those who were athletes, they said, man, I've never been in here, talking about how great it was and how, wish we would have had something like that. But as we were walking around, they've got the different banners of the All-Staters, and we're seeing Robin's name up there and all those different years, so I was just thinking about Robin, just, as I was walking around up there this weekend.
Yeah. Her, Angie McDonald, she was a state champion. That was back during my second tour of duty with the press. And that was the year that her, Robin, now Monica Roten, they were all a part of that state championship team in cross country back in the mid 80s.
Yep.
I hate dating not only myself, but them as well. So
Angela was a cute girl. I was friends with her parents, and really, really great gal. And she did a really good job while she was up there at Tahlequah High.
Yeah, and Tori Pham, she wound up 7th to finish in the top 10 along with McKenna. Tahlequah was 3rd behind Guthrie and Edison in the pre-state that was held Saturday at Edmond Santa Fe there. And this week, if you want to go watch the Lady Tigers and Tigers run, make the 60-mile drive to Fayetteville. I don't know where the cross-country course is at U of A, but they're running the Chili Pepper.
Oh, are they really?
Yeah, they run the Chili Pepper Saturday, and it's not only high schools, but also colleges as well. So if you want to see the Arkansas cross-country team at work, both the men and the women, it's worth the drive over there to watch them, because they've hung several NCAA national championship banners at University of Arkansas. It is a track haven over there, not only in cross country, but indoor and outdoor track. The indoor track is just to the west of Baum-Walker Stadium, where the Razorbacks play baseball, down on the south end of Razorback Road.
So, fantastic. Be a fun Saturday.
Yeah, it will. I'm going to be over. I'll be over that way too, and I'll touch on that here in just a little bit. Well, let's turn the page and go over to college football. Talk about the Redmen. They played
another rough week.
Well, listen to JJ yesterday down at Emery's Grill down at the quarterback club meeting, and they meet every Monday down there. It's just south of Salmonella's and the south of the campus. It's a team right now. I'll just, put it bluntly, they're snake bit. 7-0, had a chance to tie the ball game or at least get a field goal, and quarterback made a wrong decision, and free safety cut and cross and picked them off at the goal line. They got out to the 8, and then Missouri Southern marched 92 yards down the field and scored just before half, made it 14-0. Then NSU goes 3 and out to start the third. They go down and score after a short punt. Then a turnover, short field score. Again, they were driving, a fumble down at the Missouri Southern 30. It wound up being a scoop and score from 70 yards, and Next thing you know, you look up at the scoreboard, that big scoreboard down on the south end of Fred G. Hughes Stadium there in Joplin. Instead of being 14-0, it's 35-0 before you turn around, and wound up 42-0. And just like I say, it's just they're extremely snake bit. They're a -11 in the turnover ratio. They turned the ball over 12 times and only had gotten one turnover in 4 ball games. So that
You
makes
can
it
tell
hard.
it does. I mean, and I'm kind of wondered what was going on with them because, I was overlooking the scores, out of the first 4 games, NSU's only got 17 points to show for it. And those all came in that second game against Nebraska Kearney, which they lost 17-31.
Right. Well, it's that and the biggest bugaboo has been injuries and to the wrong place, the line. They've had a guy out, concussion. They've had a couple of other injuries that they had 3 holes to fill. In fact, they had to move a tight end, one of their captains, who had an 80 number, and they put number 77 on him and put him at tackle.
So, wow.
And they're going to probably keep him there because he graded out the best of anybody Saturday against Missouri Southern.
That's not good if you're standing tight end that got moved.
Yeah.
Graded the best.
And it's homecoming Saturday for the Redmen. They take on the Pittsburgh State Gorillas. And they'll come in here like they usually do. But here's something that's going to happen Saturday. There's going to be up to 14 members of the 1958 national championship team that's going to be in attendance for the ball game Saturday. JJ was working on that with Mr. O'Reilly, one of the players from that 1958 ball club. This will be the 65th anniversary of Northeastern going down to the Holiday Bowl at Al Lang Field in St. Petersburg, Florida. And they beat, it was Arizona State College Flagstaff back then. We know it now as Northern Arizona. That was the opponent in the national championship game in 1958 that we won.
Wow.
So hopefully we don't get roughed up too bad, because next week's a ball game we could win. We got to make the last trip to Jefferson City, Missouri, to take on the Blue Tigers of Lincoln as they're moving from the MIAA into the Great Lakes Valley Conference. Now, I told JJ yesterday, they're moving into a conference with 3 former teams that used to be in the MIAA. Missouri Rolla, now Missouri S&T, Southwest Baptist, and what used to be known as Northeast Missouri, now Truman State University up in Kirksville, up in the northeast corner of Missouri. And so they're going to be joining them along with several other teams in the Great Lakes Valley Conference coming next season. So let's get to the major colleges, to the D1s. Machineers played tough and beat Cincinnati at Cincinnati 20-6. Defense looked a little bit better.
They did. I was talking about this with some others of us on Saturday after the game. For the last several years, you're up by 14 with 6 minutes to go in the game, and you're still kind of nervous because you don't know if you can hold that lead or not. It felt pretty good. I got to be honest with you. It felt pretty good on Saturday with 6 minutes left. knowing that you probably had this one won because you were up by 14. And it kind of reminded us of some of the old days back whenever we were there on campus. And, you'd be up by 7, 10, 14. You knew you had the game won at that point in the game. Hadn't been that way the last few years. So defense has kind of been the bright spot, actually. I hear a lot of people talking about, still got more to build, and they do, but Brent Venables has really brought that defense. In fact, I'll give you a quote. Teddy Lehman, actually, an All-American linebacker, played
from Fort Gibson.
From Fort Gibson, absolutely. He had made mention after the game that was the best defensive performance he had seen from Oklahoma in over a decade.
I will drink to that one. I got the chance to watch most of that ball game. I didn't get to see the night games because of the thunderstorms that were rolling through. And we have to unplug everything here when a storm comes in. We've been hit by lightning. We've had a couple of TVs fried. We've had our ceiling fans fried. So we unplug everything whenever these storms come in.
If you remember, Jim, last week when we were doing the podcast, I had made mention of the fact that our offense was going to struggle a little bit against Cincinnati because outside of Texas, the word from Norman was that Cincinnati was going to have the best defensive line we were going to see in the regular season outside of Texas. And sure enough, they were pretty good. They had a very good, Don Corleone was the kid's name, and he played a heck of a ball game, did really well. The only thing we noticed, if you were watching the game, and it was talked about on the Sooner sports broadcast, every time the Sooner offense would start going up tempo, those guys were wearing down a little bit. And they would kind of fall and kind of one of them would come out. But the advantage, it was frustrating as a Sooner offensive, watching the Sooner offense because their tempo got slowed down. The only good thing was, though, is that their two best linemen would always come out after that. And so then we took advantage of them two being out. Sooner offense did pretty good. They only scored 20 points. But overall, the passing game, they were leaving the passing game wide open, which on offense, wide receivers are Oklahoma's strength this year, without a doubt. Kind of still questionable about what's happening in the running back room. They've got 4 that they rotate, but I think part of the problem from last week was, again, the Cincinnati defensive line. They were just leaving the gaps for the wide receivers to run through, and they were open. So it's hard to justify running with that kind of a line and leaving those receivers open and not taking advantage of it. So it's going to be interesting coming up Saturday against Iowa State.
Yeah, Cyclones got a win over Oklahoma State, 34-27 in Ames. But Gundy finally decided on a quarterback, and he played well, even though they got beat by 7. So,
yeah. Hopefully
Oklahoma State has a week to get everything lined up. They've the old adage, they play idle this week. Idle favored by 20.
Well, I'll tell you, I think Mike Gundy could use a week off, kind of try to get things back squared away up there in Stillwater.
Yep. They got a rare Friday night game when they come back into Big 12 action. Friday night at Boone Pickens against the Kansas State Wildcats. So that'll be interesting. That's an ESPN game. So I got a funny feeling it might be the crew that I worked with for the BYU game that might work that game. I don't know. We never know where we're going to be at until Sunday or Monday, the week of the game, if you're going to have a game or not, as far as on my end of it, as far as doing stats. But as far as the announcers, don't be surprised that the crew that works that game, with it being an ESPN game, it could be Brian Custer, Rod Gilmore with Lawrence Sisler on the sideline. In fact, they're working the BYU game Saturday night in Provo.
Okay, against Cincinnati, who Oklahoma just defeated. So,
yeah,
both Oklahoma or Cincinnati and BYU both kind of had rough weeks for their first Big 12 place, with the Kansas Jayhawks taking care of the BYU Cougars. So, being a good game up there in Provo, BYU versus Cincinnati.
Yeah, and I've got Lauren on Instagram, and I've already warned her. I said, watch out, you may have to do the her sideline shuffle with you know who, Cosmo.
Yeah, absolutely. You can bet Cosmo will be there for fun.
Oh, he was there at Fayetteville. Yeah.
Was he?
Yes.
Speaking of which, a little interesting note, BYU and Cincinnati playing Friday night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you know why?
Very much so, because of the church.
Yes. For our listeners who don't know,
you have to be done by sundown on Saturday. Is that right?
Well, the conference for the church, they have 2 worldwide conferences a year, and it begins Saturday morning at 11 Utah time. So it doesn't really have to be done by sundown, but they play the game on Friday night, so that the game will be Friday night, but that's so that the BYU players and cheer squads and all the spirit squads and students can be at the conference on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. And I've been down there on Temple Square back in what year was it? 1996. Mm-hmm. We had the back then it was called the American Bowling Congress Championships Tournament, which is now the United States Bowling Congress Open Championships. And we bowled at the Salt Palace.
Okay.
And constructed 40 brand new lanes in the will be the convention area of the Salt Palace, which is if I've got my bearings right, from Temple Square, it's like south and west of Temple Square.
Yep, just southwest.
I didn't have a rental car, never did rent a car there. We walked to to where we were bowling, and so the hotel we stayed at was a couple of blocks away, but it was not. It wasn't the best place in the world. I'll put it that way. I bowled with some guys from the Tulsa Bowling Association. I was on their board, and I wound up bowling with them back in '96, and I got my 25-year plaque this past July for bowling 25 of them out. Got that out in Reno, and had the flight from hell. Took two attempts to try to land. Couldn't land because of storms in Vegas. Had to divert to Ontario, California, refuel, come back in. I didn't make it to Reno till 20 minutes till midnight. I was supposed to be in there 20 minutes till 6. So I was 6 hours late getting there.
Wow.
So needless to say, it was
not a fun flight.
The trip this year was not very good.
No.
The only other team would be my Razorbacks. They fell to the LSU Tigers 34-31. It was close.
It was close
throughout. Had to listen to the game on the Varsity Sports app on the phone because couldn't watch the game because of the lightning storm. But LSU scored right before half, and from then on, it's what coaches, what coaches call a track meet.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, as they would trade touchdowns, and then uh, Arkansas had to burn all three of their timeouts early in the second half, and then they were out of timeouts on that last drive that LSU had. So Sam talked about trying to, let them score, but Brian Kelly told his guys, said, don't score. Don't go, get to the one and kneel. Don't go in the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
And they kicked the field goal with 5 seconds left. Arkansas got the squib kick, and one of their linebackers fell on it. So no time ran off the clock, and they tried to throw a Hail Mary and got it intercepted there at the end and got beat 34-31. So the Golden Boot stays in Louisiana for another year. And that thing, that trophy is like 200 pounds, and it's 24 karat gold.
Oh, seriously? Is it really?
Seriously. With the base and everything, it's 24 karat gold, but it weighs so much that a couple of guys have to haul that thing whenever when the team wins.
Wow.
But unfortunately, it didn't come back on the trailer back to Fayetteville. So, and now Arkansas goes to Arlington, to Jerry's place, 11 o'clock game against Texas A&M, and Jimbo Fisher and former Arkansas head coach Bobby Petrino, who's the offense coordinator down there at College Station. So
yeah, be good. And kind of another interesting game. That is going to be a good one at Jerry's World, I think.
it will be.
It'll be fun to watch. What do you think's the best game in the SEC coming up? Do you think that's the one to watch this week?
Yeah, I think it will be. Like I say, 11 o'clock start. A lot of people saying, why is it 11 o'clock start? Well, here's the reason. The Cowboys play Sunday at home at 3:25 against the Raiders. Well, Jerry has 2 different fields. He has one for college. When they get done, they'll roll that one up and then roll out the Cowboys field. So that's the reason why it is an early kickoff, because after that game's over with, that ground crew will go in there and roll that rug up, and then put down the Cowboys with the star in the middle. And the only other time he uses that, other than a Cowboys game, is the week before Christmas. And it's where they play the UIL state championship games. The kids get to play on the Cowboys field with the star on it. And that's from 6A Division I all the way down to on Wednesday morning when they start it at 11 o'clock in the morning. 1A Division I and II.
Oh, wow.
And 1A in Texas is 6-man football. They convert it into a 80-yard by 40-yard field. The goal line is the 10s, and the end line is the goal line, and they bring in 2 portable goalposts and put sandbags on them on the back. And in 6-man, you kick the extra point, it's 2. You run it, it's 1.
That's backwards then.
Right. And it's 15 yards for a first down, not 10.
Interesting. Wow.
And it's 10-minute quarters, and you have the 45-point mercy rule. So if you lead by 45 or more after halftime, the game's over. So,
Hey, dropping back to college football, want to get your thoughts on this. ESPN Game Day.
yeah.
Sweet, they're going to Durham, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Duke versus Notre Dame. I don't think they've ever been to North Carolina. Duke's never had hosted Game Day, have they?
No, Duke has never hosted game day. I think Carolina has, but
Mm-hmm.
Duke has. And Duke's playing pretty good right now.
Well, they're number 17. I mean, it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
a great game because they're taking on number 11 Notre Dame, who lost a close one to Ohio State.
Narrowly got beat by Ohio State at the gun. And unfortunately for the Notre Dame fans, the Ohio State band got to play second, and they had to hear the strains of Carmen, Ohio, which is the alma
Right.
mater for Ohio State.
Well, and then I didn't realize this. I was watching the end of that game. I did not realize this until after the game, though. Apparently, the last two plays, Notre Dame only had 10 guys on the field.
Oh boy, I didn't
Last two
realize that.
plays of the game. I didn't realize that either until I saw it posted on the news, and I was like, "Wow, wow!" There was some confusion on that defense.
Yes, very much so. What about Colorado coming down to earth?
Oh man, yeah, they kind of got a realization of playing with the big boys, didn't they?
Yeah, Bo Nix. I think you got to say right now, Nix could be one of the top three guys for the Heisman.
Oh yeah,
he looks really good.
Definitely. You know, now of course Colorado, I don't think it would have made a difference in that Oregon game at all. Of course, they didn't have Travis Hunter.
No, that hurt him.
He's still out, and that did hurt them. I don't think it would have changed the outcome at all. Where I do think it might change the outcome a little bit is I really had a strong feeling they were going to give USC a close run for their money Saturday in Boulder.
Yeah, that game's on at 11. That's a 10 o'clock kick in Boulder.
Yeah.
That's the second one they've had.
It is. It's big noon for Fox, right?
Yes. Yeah, that means Gus and Joel will call that game, and the big noon Saturday's out there for the second time.
But without Hunter, I'm not sure they can pull off. I really thought they had a good chance at upsetting USC in Boulder, but without Hunter in the game, I'm not sure they can quite pull that off. But I look for a close one either way.
I don't think they had 150 yards total offense Saturday.
Mm-hmm. No, it was not good.
They might be one of those things where they go to a gunfight with a cap gun again.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking about next week, which is OU Texas,
right?
And they announced yesterday, as you and I expected, 11 o'clock kick.
11 o'clock
because of the safety reasons down there.
Right.
So that's I know a lot of people scream and holler, say, "Why can't we get 2:30?" You and I both know.
We know
it's safety.
Know. It is.
And until you move it to Jerry's place, you're going to play the Cotton Bowl at 11 o'clock. No ifs, no ands or buts.
That's about it.
And like you and I talked last week, don't be surprised. Greg Sankey's down there at the game next Saturday.
I expect him to be.
Huh?
I expect him to be there. It's going to be one of their premier games in the conference.
It's not an SEC game, but it will be next year.
Yep.
But he's going to see what the problem may be. Mm-hmm. What the problem is, not maybe what maybe it is. And Josie and Chris Del Conte and him will sit down and they're going to talk about it, and they may don't be surprised, they may make a drive from there over to Arlington.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure
Or either to
Jerry's.
Arlington, or better yet, to Frisco, to the Star, where the Cowboys offices are at,
Mhm.
and sit down and talk to Jerry and Steven.
I would fully expect them to be making the drive to Frisco, then all three of them over to Arlington would be my guess, or all four of them. I mean,
All four of them, yeah, or
with
five.
Jerry.
So
Yeah,
you can throw Jerry and Steven both in there.
and Stephen. Yeah.
So
Yep. It would not surprise me one bit. I love being in the Cotton Bowl. I love doing OU Texas in the heart of the fair. It's the tradition, but the Cotton Bowl, the facility has not. It's in rough shape itself.
yes,
You know, the last time I was there, it just has really seemed run down, and that was over 10 years ago. Was the last time I
right,
was there.
yep,
And it was really getting run down then. And just like we've talked about before, the atmosphere around the fair and outside and that part of Dallas just is not a safe place anymore. It's not like it used to
nope,
be.
nope,
When I was in college, we had a couple of 2:30 games there,
yes,
and it was fine. It was, you always have to be cautious in a big city, any big city, but it was fine coming out of there after dark. But it will be dark by the time the fans get out of the fairgrounds and into their cars and out on the interstate, and it's not a safe
right.
place anymore.
Uh, the one thing you could say, if you move it to AT&T, is that you've got Texas Live down there, which
Hmm.
is between the ballpark and AT&T,
Hmm.
and there's a lot of good eating joints there.
There is,
But it's not the fair, but
no,
Fletcher's would bring a number of food trailers, just so you could get that traditional corn
hmm
dog down there.
and I could see that happening
I
down
could
in that
too.
area.
I could too.
Sooner alumni, they stay in Las Colinas anyway, which is over that way.
Yeah,
If it's
at
more on
Irving.
that
Yeah.
side. Yeah. And Texas, my wife booked us a hotel once, and whenever the last time we went to the game, which was about 10 years ago, my wife booked the hotel room, and I knew I was in trouble when I rounded the corner and I saw these big buses with all this horrible burnt orange. They were standing everywhere. She booked us in the room or in the same hotel as the Texas football team.
Oh,
And
oh boy.
and I
Uh-huh.
won't reveal where it was, but it was up in north part of Dallas, North
Right.
Dallas, I'll put it
Yeah.
that way.
Hmm. It
And
does.
and of course the Sooners, they stay over in the Las Colinas area as well. So
Mhm.
um, it's, I think, kind of playing over there in Jerry's place. It would be a good place to consider. And with us going into SEC, I remember back right after I graduated out of college was kind of when they started having trouble down on the Commerce Street, which was a big deal for Friday night.
Oh
That was
yeah.
always a fun thing. It was a lot of fun, but a lot of people who weren't really fans of Oklahoma or Texas, they weren't students, they weren't part of the spirit groups, they weren't alumni,
Hmm.
they were some of the Dallas area gangs. I mean, I'll just say it
Yeah.
what it was. They started infiltrating, and there was some problems down there, and that was in the
Yeah.
'90s, and that was whenever they shut the Commerce Street down, and people moaned and groaned and howled about it, but then it just kind of drifted into other things, and I think you're going to see the game at the Cotton Bowl and the Fair kind of drift into that as OU and Texas both transition into the SEC. Wouldn't surprise me a bit.
Well, I think we have covered pretty much week 4 of the podcast, and
Yeah, if
next
everything
week
holds, if everything holds true to form,
uh,
just talking
we'll
about
lead
OU
off with
Texas.
OU Texas, and
Yep.
talk about that. See what they will look like going into that Red River Rivalry come next Saturday down there at 11 o'clock at the Cotton Bowl.
I would expect both teams to be 5-0 going
I do
into that
too.
game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be the first time in a long time
It sure will. We'd
that's
have to
happened.
look it up. And we do these podcasts on Tuesday. We record them on Tuesday. I'd have to get the notes on Monday afternoon, and
Mm-hmm.
from both OU and Texas. One of them's got to have the last time that both of them come in undefeated. So,
Yeah.
well, that will do it for this week's edition of the Cover 4 podcast. For my partner in crime, Randy Gibson, I'm Jim Trickett. Have a good week, and we'll see you next week here on the Cover 4 podcast. See you later. Bye.